first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the acting president of the United States from 1933 until his death in 1945, had control over the country through some of its hardest times. Some hail him as a hero, and others accuse him of being a dictator.
Wait, isn't this presentation about dictators? Franco, Stalin, Mussolini? How does FDR fit into this?
Yeah, I didn't get a pick. Besides, FDR is often referred to as the closest thing to a dictator the United States has ever had. He served for 12 years because he was elected in 1933 and died in 1945. We'll talk about this. Franklin was born in Hyde Park, New York on January 30th, 1882. He had a half-brother, James. James Roosevelt I was Franklin's father. He was a wealthy businessman and landowner. And Sarah Roosevelt tended to FDR, her only child. Franklin was homeschooled until the age of 14. Then he attended Groton School, which was a preparatory boarding school in Massachusetts. Finally, he attended Harvard and later dropped out of Columbia Law School. FDR married his fifth cousin, Eleanor, and had 6 children. One child did not survive. The other 5, Anna, James, Franklin Jr., Elliot, and John, all lived. FDR had a few affairs, and the best known was with Lucy Mercer Rutherford. He kicked off his political career as a Democratic senator of New York from 1910 to 1912. Later, he became Assistant Secretary of the Navy in 1913 and served until 1919. In 1920, he ran to be Cox's vice president, but was defeated by the Republicans. He got sick in the 1920s, but came back to politics in 1929. Serving as the governor of New York until 1932. He was elected as the President of the United States in the 1932 election. Roosevelt promised securities regulation, tariff reduction, farm relief, government-funded public works, and other government actions to address the Great Depression. FDR also led us through World War II and helped the United States form a strong alliance with Britain and the Soviet Union to defeat Nazi Germany. While initially not wanting to get involved in the international conflict, the U.S. joined after the bombing of Pearl Harbor and helped supply fresh men, guns, and other resources to the Allies. Roosevelt died on April 12, 1945, of a brain hemorrhage. He suffered from polio and a long history of health issues. His vice president, Harry Truman, took over after his death. FDR is often praised for his actions as he led the United States through 2 major crises. He took control over our country in our time of need, but some argue that he took too much control. FDR moved to create executive-level agencies with control over certain parts of the economy who would answer only to him. When the Supreme Court rejected several of his actions because of executive overreach, Franklin attempted to add more justices to the High Court so he would have advantageous rulings. This was, and still is, one of the most disgusting and embarrassing efforts of a president attempting to overstep its constitutional bounds in American history. FDR also ran for and won presidency 4 times, rather than the unspoken 2-time limit. Thanks to him, the 22nd Amendment states that no president can be in the White House for more than 8 years. Franklin is also considered to be the father of modern socialism in America, and signed the Social Security Bill into law in 1935 and created the welfare state. And now, some fun facts. FDR was an avid stamp collector, a law school dropout, and he appointed the first female cabinet officer. For long periods of his life, he couldn't walk without assistance and often had to have one of his sons support him during speeches. His wife, Eleanor, was the niece of Teddy Roosevelt and his 5th cousin. Whether you consider the 32nd president a dictator or not, Franklin Delano Roosevelt led the United States out of the Great Depression and through World War II.